Welcome to Beyond the Red Carpet. I'm Francine Brokaw, and today I have Tina Cole, who's had an extensive career in the entertainment business. Welcome, Tina. Thank you for sharing some of your day with us.
Oh, thank you, Francine. It's been a long time happening, but I'm glad
Yeah.
it finally did. It's nice to be
Yeah.
here.
Well, yeah, this is for the viewers. Let's just start off with the history of your family so we can bring them up to date.
Okay.
Your mother and her sisters started the King Sisters in the 1930s.
30s.
And
my mom was 14
yeah,
when they became the four King Sisters.
and then they added two more, so it went up to six, correct?
No, it started out as three.
I started off with
And
three.
then my mom and her sister joined when my mom was 14, and that's when they became the four.
Wow.
Although
Okay.
they did sing as six at one point when they were much younger. Yeah,
Younger than 14.
I know, crazy.
Were they? I read somewhere when I was doing some research that they turned down to be in the Glenn Miller.
And aren't we glad, because they could have gone down with the plane? I wouldn't be here.
That's true. That's true. They did sing with Artie Shaw.
They did.
So big bands. This is the big band era. And
so they were originally with Horace Heidt. That was the original, the band that they were with him for quite some time.
Okay. Did they ever go? This is the World War II era. Obviously, they were. Did they go on USO and tour with the soldiers at all?
They didn't in those days. I don't think they did in World War II. That was kind of Vietnam, and I mean, towards maybe the end. But the interesting thing is, my mother had a hit record called Nighty Night. And Armed Forces Radio used that as their sign off. So in our show, she used to say, so I used to put all of you fellas to bed every night. It was the last thing they heard before lights out. But interestingly enough, Tokyo Rose used that to try and mess with their morale. Don't you miss home? Don't you wish, and so she kind of used that against them. But our armed forces used it to say, nighty night. And it was wonderful. My mother loved that. Yeah.
How sweet. So like tucking them in every night with the voice from home. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Okay. So, from the World War II era and everything, let's move up quickly to 1964 when your mother's idea was to start the King Family Show. Tell us how that happened.
It was very serendipitous, actually. The King Sisters were asked to do a benefit for the Mormon Church. We were trying to build a new ward building in our town of Orinda, Lafayette, up in the Bay Area in California. My mom said, gee, with King Sisters have done this before. Why don't we do an evening with the King Sisters and their families? And they said, well, that could be interesting. So she called everyone. It was a moment in time where all of her brothers and sisters and the children, my cousins, were able to do it. So she produced it, she wrote it, she arranged it, I helped her sew 1,000 costumes.
You almost had a cast of thousands, yeah.
And because there was the whole family. So all 16 original, the brothers and sisters and their spouses, and then all the cousins. And we did the show. We did it in Oakland, California. There were, somewhere between 800 and 1,000 people. We received a standing ovation. And my aunt, one of the sisters, said, gee, we want to build a new chapel in Van Nuys, California. Will you do the show for us? So we said, sure. So we went down, and there were a lot of producers and writers and directors and singers that were in the audience. There were probably 3,000 people, and we received another standing ovation. My grandfather, William King Driggs, which is where we got the King from, was one of the first student body presidents of Brigham Young Academy before it came Brigham Young University. And they called him and said, gee, would you do the show for us? We want to build a football stadium, Cougar Stadium. So we said, sure, we'll do that. So we went to BYU, and the show, we were on the basketball court, and there were like 11,000 people there of all different ages. And we received another standing ovation, even though we had some curtains put up, but there was no set, nothing, it was pretty raw. But the BYU film department kinescoped it, and someone said, here's a number, you need to call ABC. So one morning at like 6 a.m, I come out, my mom's in the kitchen in her nightgown, peeling an orange, her bare feet. And she's talking to the head of programming for ABC in New York. She says, I think I've got something you might be interested in. She said, look, the footage is very raw. There's no, wonderful ambiance at all. But I think the heart is there. So he said, if you can cut the 2-hour program down to 1 hour, I'll let you go to our people in San Francisco, cut it down. And if he thinks it's worth seeing, I'll come in to see it. He brought his family to see it, and the producers of the Hollywood Palace. They did it actually at the Hollywood Palace in Hollywood. And he turned to my mom and said, with tears in his eyes, and he said, this is something I would like my family to be able to see. And he said, Nick, Bill, will you produce it? And they said, yes. And so we did a special and then we started doing a lot of Hollywood palaces, and we did Tennis Attorney Ford. We did a lot of shows because they wanted to make sure we had an audience. We were going to replace, I don't know, it was Outer Limits or one of those shows.
Oh, yes. I think it was Outer Limits.
And in January of 65. And it was amazing that we all could do it. My whole family could do it, except we had a couple of cousins on missions that were not in country. And otherwise, everybody could do the show. So it was pretty amazing. And my mother produced it. And we had the Hollywood Palace team. We had Bob Mackey, who has made an amazing name for himself. It was the first show he ever did on his own.
Oh my gosh, you were so lucky. He's a talent.
Can you imagine? The training he had to dress 22 women from 65 down to 2, all looking alike, but all different shaped bodies and ages. He really had to get his feet wet with that one.
Oh, he did such a good job, because my sister and I would watch the show religiously, and we always loved the dresses that y'all wore. Especially the cousins, and it just and then the sweatshirts with your names on them and everything. It was
we loved those that he did that. I think he was brilliant, and Definitely. It was in black and white. But he used a lot of black and white fabrics for the show, which other costumers said, "Oh, you can't do black and white on a black and white film, or tape." Yeah. But he did, and I thought we had just loved. Oh, plus, okay, that's part of that. We just adored him. And then Mark Bro and Dee Dee Wood had just done The Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. They were the choreographers. Mark always wanted to direct. So he said, they asked him if he would direct the show, and Dee Dee, his wife, did the choreography. So we had the very best crew,
You did.
you know, it just.
I just want to tell the folks that this, I mean, we've had Osmonds on my show, but you predate them as far as a big family and their family shows and your holiday shows and everything.
Yeah.
You were the ultimate entertainment family of the 60s.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing for all of us. And what's funny is when we were little kids, when the sisters would be playing Harrah's at Tahoe or Reno or, you know, in Las Vegas or whatever, if we would be there to see the shows, they would bring us on stage with them. So, and then my mother, when I was 16, my mother would play Tahoe, and they always talk about the Vegas throat or the Tahoe throat. She was the lead singer, and she would lose her voice quite often. And I would fill in, I'd be backstage singing for her.
Lip syncing to her.
No, I would be singing. She'd be lip syncing to me.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
Lip syncing.
So,
I had it backwards.
But so we all knew, we had never had training, any of us. I mean, we had ballet, you know, as little girls, but no one had training. I had been on my own since I was 19. So I had experience, and I was the only one of the cousins who had experience, the sisters, and of course Alvino and Bob Clark, but that was it. So everybody they just said, do this, and we did it. You know?
But I did hear you say one time when you were doing one of the Christmas shows that the cousins were all in a truck, and you were saying, oh, if somebody comes in here, we'll go there. And
we made up head arrangements. Oh,
yeah, you did your own.
And if you can sing this, okay, now you sing that. And all right, but now, no, do it again. You know, and that's the way the King sisters always did their music. They worked with an arranger, but they were the ones that came up with the sound. And they were the first female vocal group to sing in 4-part harmony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they always, and as cousins, we would be playing all together around where the piano was, and we're working with the arrangers. So we could hear them, you know, arguing about who got to sing the hot notes. You know? No, you got to sing. No. Oh, if you add this. You know, and so we were used to working with them that way.
Yes. But then let me say, the King sisters themselves were quite famous, quite big in their day.
They were.
And then when you bring in the whole family, and you had the King kiddies, but for some reason the King cousins, the 4 King cousins,
You got it. You like that album?
I love it.
It's the happiest music, isn't it?
It is more today than yesterday. The 4 King cousins, but you guys broke out and became an act on your own.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of seeing you a couple times at the Catalina Jazz Club in Hollywood.
Oh, really?
And sold out both times. I mean, this is just a few years ago.
To come back after 30 years as old broads, you know, and to sing. Of course, we had to lower a couple of the keys, but it was a thrill for us that people loved it so much. And we only stopped, we worked for about 5 years, and my cousin Carolyn said, I just don't want to do it anymore. And she was moving away from Los Angeles, and so it was harder to get together. So that's the only reason we're not singing now.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, actually, you probably don't remember a zillion years ago. I mean, we're talking a zillion years ago. I was at your house up in the hills of Encino or Studio City, wherever it was, one time with a friend of mine. And you were showing me a couple of you had a Christmas album from the King cousins, and I never was able to get that. It is out of print when I got home. So
really?
I know you guys have done so many.
There, you can get them on through the family's website, and the family's Christmas. I think even Amazon might have it.
Okay.
but they put them out. They two wonderful men. They own a company called Polio Entertainment, and they called us and said, we would love to do a retrospective for PBS.
Mm-hmm.
And so they interviewed us, and they took clips from all the different Christmas shows that we did, and they put out a retrospective on us, and that came out in 2009, Christmas 2009.
I reviewed that.
Yeah, did you really? Oh, Francie.
Yeah, so I mean,
which house did you come to? Which house did you come to?
You were up in the hill. We'll talk about it after we finish taping. But yeah, you were up in the hill. It was really interesting. Now let's move on, because besides singing, you have. I'm at the very last season now, because MeTV has been airing My Three Sons every weekday. Every morning I get up and I have a My Three Sons episode. You were in there from what were the, let me see, what the I don't have dates, but 136 episodes you appeared in.
Well, I did. My first series was a show called Hawaiian Eye.
Hawaiian Eye, that was in 1963.
Yeah, and it you've done your research. When I finished, I had signed a 7-year contract, but I was only there for a year because the whole studio system changed. Jack Webb took over as head of programming for Warner Brothers, and they got rid of all of the contract players. So we did one movie called Palm Springs Weekend, and I was a contract player. I didn't even get credit, and I had a pretty good part in it.
Yes,
I wasn't one of the leads, but I had a really
you're recognizable in there. Yeah. We can see you.
I was uncredited, which I didn't know because I never had an agent. They just said, hey, we want to test you for Hawaiian Eye. And I went, oh, okay, whatever that is. So I had no agent to help me, but I would get calls from different shows, like The Lucy Show or My Three Sons. And I played 3 different characters in the black and white shows before I ever became Katie, which was in 67. I became Katie. And what's funny is the show that they used, I think, for my screen test, I wore if you were doing a guest spot on a show, you wore your own clothes, unless it was something specific. So I wore this green dress with a white collar and little white cuffs. And then I wore it a couple of times as Katie, not realizing that my fans would say, hey, wait a minute, Joanne wore that, before they ever moved out of Bryant Park.
But did I read that Don Grady, who played Robbie Douglas, who your husband, in the show, did he not want you in that part?
That's true, and he didn't tell me that until I'd done the show for 2 years, and then I was divorced, and we fell madly in love. And that's when he told me that he didn't think I was right for him. I was right for the character. You remember Ronnie Troop, who played
Polly?
That's who he wanted to be his wife. He wanted her to be Katie. And I should have been a red flag. The first couple of weeks of shooting was all about Robbie meeting Katie and then falling in love and getting married. Well, we had to do all these makeout scenes. We kept bumping noses, and it was just very awkward. Well, maybe because he didn't really want me to be that, that character. Fred de Cordova, who was our director, who went on to produce Johnny Carson for so long, had to stop shooting. And he told the crew to go set up for another scene, that we would come back to this. And he took us aside. He said, okay, guys, you got to look like you like each other. And he said, I want you to go back into the back of the soundstage and practice kissing. You get it right. So we had to go back for like a half an hour and learn how to kiss each other.
Oh my.
It was pretty funny. And, you know, and then 2 years later, he says, yeah, well, that was the reason. I really didn't want you to be Katie. And then he realized the wisdom of the producers and the casting director.
And the final year, he was not on the show. Can you explain to us why he was not? He was still credited, but why did he leave? It was such a successful show.
Yeah, he had been acting, doing television since he was like 11 or 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And he was tired of it. His passion was music. And he wanted to devote his life to music. And he said, I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to act anymore. We had a spinoff that I think probably would have gone had he not just decided he just wanted to end his contract. Mm-hmm. I was really sad.
Yes, it was such a great, I mean, for all the viewers out here, I highly suggest, if you haven't seen it, search it out. If you have seen it, watch it again, because it is really a wonderful family show. And to be honest, and this is true honesty, out of all the fathers in the history of television, Fred MacMurray Steve Douglas would be the one I would want.
I think that Fred and Don Feddersen, mm-hmm. and Ed Hartman, the producer, all felt, well, Don Feddersen really wanted it to be what he wanted his family to be like. He wanted it to reflect that.
Right.
And so they were very, every morning, Fred MacMurray and Fred de Cordova would get together with the writers and go through the script again and say, okay, is this what we want? Is this the way we want the kids to look? They were very specific about that. And Fred MacMurray was that kind of a father to his adopted twin girls.
So he actually was as nice as we see him to be. That is so nice to hear, because a lot of times, you know, people will be completely opposite.
And no, he was very conservative, he was very introverted. I mean, he would be sitting on the set and someone would walk in, the paper would go up. And it wasn't because he was stuck up or he was rude. He didn't know what to say. He just was, he was very shy, I think, until he got into the character and got actually into the scene, and he would come alive.
But he'd been in the business for decades and decades prior to this. I mean, he was a main movie star
big time.
So he was a big deal. But let us now move on to what you are doing currently.
Well, currently, you mean before COVID?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. What I did in Sacramento was my most favorite thing I did forever. For 27 years, I directed, it was Sacramento Children's Theater. And it was only for 3 months. We started rehearsing in January, performed in February and March. The program had gone on for 83 consecutive years of free musical theater for children. We used adult women and a couple of men sometimes that wanted to do it, volunteered for acting and for costume and everything. Started out through the junior league and then went into the umbrella of Fairy Tale Town, which is a wonderful children's park here in Sacramento. I directed, we had In the beginning, we had live music. We had original 45-minute musical plays that were interactive with the children, pre-K to 3rd grade. They bust them in. We'd do maybe, when we were doing 2 shows a day, we'd do almost 2,000 children a day for 5 weeks. 4 days a week, 5 weeks.
And you were used to being with kids because, let's say, the King family, like I said before, it is a cast of thousands. I mean,
yeah.
We think of the Osmonds, but the King family's bigger.
Yes. You know, as I digress, George Burns and Tina Cole did the first Osmond special. We were guests on the first Osmond special.
I did not know that. That is a good little tidbit.
It was really fun. But going back to the Junior League or the Children's Theater. So it was adults doing theater for children. It was interactive. The children would learn the songs. It was all theme-based, all morality-based. Be friends, be kind, don't cheat, don't lie, listen to your parents and your teachers. But they were clever, and the music was wonderful. And we, because of COVID, it's gone. It ended. It'll never happen again. Right. And that was, it just killed me to not do it this year. It just, I just hated it because it was my favorite thing I looked forward to every year. But for a year and a half before COVID, my cousin Cam, who was my Aunt Alice and Bob Clark's son, who was, his big claim is Leonardo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, by the way. He's a voiceover guy. And he's famous for a lot of video games, and he's an amazing voice actor. He said, and he was the little boy, he's the little one that did all the station breaks in the King family shows.
And there were 2 of them. There was a little girl.
Yes, and then Cam.
Yes.
He said, I have done everything on my bucket list, except I would like to work with my family again. So 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, he said, I want to do a tribute to our mothers and take, so he had our musical director listen to songs of theirs from the 50s and 60s. They're to us, their best songs. He took every note, and those 4-part harmonies, some of them were so tight, you know, to listen, to break it apart. We 5 of us rehearsed for a year and a half, and to do these wonderful songs, a tribute to the King sisters, a tribute to the grand old ladies of song, which is what they called themselves. And we had the venue, we had full orchestra. We were doing it with video, singing with them, showing videos of us as kids. You know, it was going to be wonderful. And then we had the lockdown.
Yeah.
For the first time in over a year, last month, to see if we still could do it, because the music is really difficult. Even though they made it sound simple, it was just the tightness of that harmony. And we all kind of went, let's see if we can revive this. Hopefully for next summer.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed, because that sounds wonderful. And for people that haven't, that are really young, that haven't heard it, it'd be a nice treat for them. But in the meantime, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. And for the viewers, I will see you next time when we take another look beyond the red carpet.